Imagine walking onto a movie set, right? But you have, like, absolutely no idea it's a set.
You just think it's a normal day.
Yeah, exactly. You think you're just scrolling into a local coffee shop. The espresso machine is hissing, a barista is wiping down the counter, the lighting pouring through the window feels perfectly natural.
Right, your brain just accepts the aesthetic completely.
Exactly. So you lean back against one of the exposed brick walls to just take it all in, and well, the entire wall wobbles.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you realize it's just painted papier mâché. The illusion just breaks right there. Everything you're looking at is this carefully constructed environment designed to make you believe you're somewhere you are not.
And, I mean, the human brain is incredibly susceptible to that kind of aesthetic.
Right.
We see a coffee shop, we trust the coffee shop.
Right.
The illusion remains flawless right up until the moment you notice those structural inconsistencies.
Mm.
The things that just shouldn't be there in reality. And once you perceive that wobble, the entire environment instantly transforms from this casual space into a deliberate stage.
Yeah. Well, finding that wobble is our mission for you today. In this deep dive, we are looking at the wobbly walls of the internet.
Yeah, and it's a fascinating one.
It really is. We are unpacking a highly provocative, politically charged piece of writing that reads like, honestly, a modern espionage thriller. But the author claims this is happening right now, in plain sight, on the biggest digital platforms in the world.
Right.
We're looking at a single source today. It's a viral-style post hosted on the publishing platform Right.as, authored by someone named Deepish Divakarakaran, and it's titled "A Man Sits in Beijing."
And the core premise of this text is incredibly aggressive. It accuses a massively popular Beijing-based high school teacher named Jiang Guiqin of being a highly sophisticated state-backed psychological operation, basically a Psyop.
Yeah, which is a massive claim.
It is. So before we unpack the mechanics of how the author actually builds this case, we have to establish a really crucial ground rule for you, our listener.
Absolutely. This is important.
This text contains intense, highly charged allegations touching on some of the most volatile geopolitics of our time, involving the United States, China, Iran, and Israel.
Right. And we need to be crystal clear here. We are operating entirely as impartial guides to the source material today. We are not taking sides.
Exactly.
We're not verifying these geopolitical claims independently, and we are certainly not endorsing the author's allegations. Our job is just to break down this really fascinating theory about modern perception warfare so you can understand the arguments purely as they're presented in the text.
Right. We have to look at this strictly through the lens of a case study in information mechanics.
Yeah.
And the author doesn't even start by attacking what this teacher's actually saying.
No, he doesn't.
Instead, the text begins by analyzing the geographic and digital environment of his rise to fame. Because the author points out a massive, glaring paradox here. YouTube is banned in China.
Yeah, I mean, everyone living in Beijing, whether you're a citizen or a foreigner, you know the reality of the Great Firewall. You don't just open a browser and log on to Western platforms.
No, you definitely don't.
Yet the text points out that this man sits in Beijing and uploads high-definition political content freely. Week after week, he broadcasts to the West with zero censorship, no takedowns, and, no digital interference from state authorities.
And the author draws a very firm conclusion from that environmental reality. This level of access isn't luck.
Right.
When a high-profile figure consistently bypasses one of the most sophisticated state censorship apparatuses in the world to broadcast to millions, they aren't just relying on a clever VPN connection. The text defines this specific access as clearance.
And clearance implies an active system of permission, right? The author is suggesting the state apparatus is actively facilitating the broadcast rather than simply, turning a blind eye.
Exactly.
And the text builds the foundation for this theory by digging into Jiang's origin story. I mean, he didn't just emerge from nowhere. He studied at Yale.
Right.
And the author specifies that this academic background occurred during the era of China's Thousand Talents program.
Which, just for context, based on the text, the Thousand Talents program is described as this strategic operation designed by Beijing to recruit Western-educated Chinese nationals back home.
Okay.
But the mechanism of that program, according to the author, isn't just reversing a brain drain. It's the weaponization of credibility.
Yeah.
These individuals return with American knowledge and networks, but most importantly, they return with the prestige of a Western institution like Yale.
Right. They pack up that Ivy League authority and literally deliver it to Beijing. So you have a Yale graduate sitting in the capital of China operating a massive channel on a banned platform.
Yeah, that's quite the setup.
The author really wants the reader to view this combination of Western academic prestige and unchecked digital access as that first major wobble in the brick wall.
Which, naturally invites skepticism. I mean, a reasonable person looking at a successful content creator might just argue that the simplest explanation is usually the correct one.
Yeah, and let me push back on the author's premise using exactly that logic. I mean, couldn't this just be a case of a guy making incredibly engaging content?
Sure, that's what people assume.
Because we know how recommendation algorithms function, right? If a video captures attention, the algorithm just accelerates its distribution. The author is essentially arguing that, a local indie band doesn't go straight to headlining a massive arena without playing tiny clubs first, unless some massive corporate machine secretly built the stage for them. Why is organic virality completely ruled out here?
Well, the author anticipates that exact counter-argument. To use your arena analogy, the text argues that you can actually measure whether a band arrived organically by looking at the logistics of their tour.
Okay, how so?
The sheer velocity and the synchronized coordination of Zhang's rise are presented as evidence of literal infrastructure rather than algorithmic luck, and the text lays out specific data points to demonstrate this.
And the numbers the author provides are definitely staggering. Like, his YouTube channel crossed 1 million subscribers in under a year.
Right.
His Substack became the #1 publication in world politics in just 6 months. But the author seems even more focused on the sudden ubiquity of his media presence.
Exactly, the coordination of it.
Yeah, he appeared simultaneously on Tucker Carlson, Piers Morgan, and Stephen Bartlett. I mean, that is a perfectly synchronized wave across completely different audience demographics.
And psyops do not go viral, right? They are placed. That is the explicit claim the text makes regarding this multi-platform blitz.
Wait, placed?
Yes. This kind of coordinated penetration into the Western media ecosystem requires resources and relationships that a high school teacher simply does not possess independently. The author actually links this logistical capability directly to the People's Liberation Army, citing their dedicated information warfare division.
Oh, wow. The text actually quotes the PLA's information warfare doctrine, too, and it is a fascinating concept. It's shape the narrative before the enemy names the battlefield.
Yeah, and the mechanics of that doctrine are critical to understanding perception warfare. If you want to control the outcome of a trial, the most effective strategy isn't to argue the evidence in court, right?
Right. It's to poison the jury pool before the trial even begins.
Exactly. Shaping the narrative before the battlefield is named means preemptively building the lens through which a global audience will view a crisis. You establish the baseline reality in the minds of the public.
So by the time a conflict happens, it's too late.
Right. By the time a geopolitical conflict actually erupts, you've already won, because the audience is interpreting the event using your pre-installed framework.
Okay, so if we accept the author's argument that this immense state-backed digital megaphone exists, the next logical question is about the payload. What is the assignment?
Right. What is he actually saying?
Yeah. The text outlines what we can call the required narrative, which is this highly specific geopolitical worldview that Jiang is allegedly tasked with broadcasting to the West.
And the author breaks this narrative down into distinct strategic objectives. First, the messaging consistently frames Iran as the ascending power in the Middle East, winning its regional conflicts.
Okay.
Second, it paints the United States as this rapidly decaying terminal empire. And third, it positions Israel as the primary villain of modern history, specifically pushing what the text calls a greater Israel narrative.
And the text uses a very deliberate phrase for that last point. It labels the rhetoric surrounding Israel not as geopolitical analysis, but as a targeting operation.
Which fundamentally changes the nature of the communication. Calling it a targeting operation suggests the language is engineered not to educate the viewer, but to literally aim their outrage.
Wow.
The author claims these individual narratives all serve a singular massive geopolitical goal, cementing a Russia-China-Iran axis as the natural and inevitable new world order.
Right.
And by convincing Western audiences that their own systems are failing and corrupt, it quietly advances China's Belt and Road Initiative as the only viable alternative for a global architecture.
The author's focus on the content is really thorough, but I think the most compelling part of this analysis is actually focused on what Jiang never says.
Oh, absolutely, the omissions.
Yeah, it reminds me of a highly deceptive real estate listing. You get this beautifully filmed, high-definition tour of a gorgeous house. The camera pans over the crown molding, the updated kitchen, the expansive backyard.
And you feel totally sold on it.
Right, you feel completely informed about the property, but what the video conveniently omits is the fact that the basement is flooded with 4 feet of water and the foundation is actively sinking.
That's a perfect analogy, because omission is vastly more powerful than fabrication in information warfare. The psychology behind it is actually brilliant.
How so?
Well, when an adversary outright lies to you, your cognitive defenses activate. You look for flaws, you fact-check. But when someone simply curates the truth, giving you accurate but highly selective information, you feel smart. You feel like you are genuinely learning.
So you let your guard down.
Exactly. You lower your defenses, completely unaware that the context that damages the broadcaster's agenda has been surgically removed from the lesson.
And the author provides a really specific list of the flooded basements in this scenario. These are the forbidden topics you will supposedly never hear a single word about across hundreds of hours of this geopolitical content.
Right.
There's absolute silence on China, funding Iran's proxy terror networks, silence on Beijing stealing American technology, silence on the Uyghurs, silence on Taiwan, silence on Tiananmen.
Because those subjects are the undeniable third rails of Chinese state media. The text argues that any truly independent analyst engaging in hundreds of hours of unscripted geopolitical discourse would inevitably brush against at least one of those topics.
Yeah, statistically, it has to come up.
Exactly. A 100% success rate in avoiding every single state-sensitive issue isn't an accident of conversation. The silence itself is the brief.
And the text synthesizes all of this, the infrastructure, the required narrative, the strategic omissions into this deeply cynical global strategy.
It really is dark.
Yeah. The author alleges this massive operation is funded by Qatar and facilitated by China. The objective is to take ancient, visceral conspiracy theories, dress them up in the legitimate, calming language of academia, and seed hatred into the Western public.
Right.
Then the operators simply sit back and watch the target fracture itself from within.
And you have to pay attention to the psychological mechanism of dressing a conspiracy in academic language. Because tone is a weapon.
Oh, definitely.
If a narrative is delivered by someone shouting on a street corner, we dismiss it entirely. But if the exact same narrative is delivered by a man in a sweater vest, sitting in a classroom, using this measured intellectual cadence we granted unearned authority, the scholar tone completely disarms the critical mind.
Which brings us to the visual delivery mechanism of this entire operation. The author spends the final section of the text dissecting the medium itself, the actual video.
Yeah, it's aesthetics of it all.
Because to a casual user scrolling through YouTube on their phone, these videos just look like a guy teaching a class, right? I mean, the subject is wearing casual clothes. He's not in a military uniform. He doesn't look like an intelligence officer. It just looks like a thoughtful professor answering questions.
Right, but the author asks the reader to look closer at the edges of the frame, to look for that wobble in the papier-mâché wall we talked about.
Yeah.
The text points out a series of profound structural inconsistencies in these supposed classroom videos. And when you isolate them, the illusion of the casual academic setting begins to disintegrate rapidly.
Yeah, the anomalies the author lists are genuinely strange. First, the text notes that it is always the exact same 3 or 4 voices asking questions in every single recorded session.
Right, which is weird.
Very. For a high school or university class that presumably operates on a semester schedule with student turnover, that consistency is basically a statistical improbability.
And second, the author emphasizes that no student faces are ever visible on camera. Ever.
Wait, never.
Never. And because there are no faces, there are no identities confirmed. The text forces the reader to confront a highly unsettling possibility. There is absolutely no verifiable proof that this is a real classroom with real students.
That is so creepy.
It is. The audience is hearing these disembodied voices, assuming they belong to a class, but it could easily be an entirely fabricated soundstage.
Wow. And then the author introduces a final detail about the physical environment of these recordings that completely shifts the tone of the analysis. It introduces this layer of surveillance that just completely undercuts the image of the free-thinking professor.
Yeah, this part is wild. The text points out that Jiang's wife is present in every single session.
Wait, really? Every session?
She is always in the room and she is always watching.
It paints an incredibly claustrophobic picture. I mean, you have a man delivering lectures in an unverified room to faceless voices with a monitor watching his every single move, operating within a country known for the most strict ideological control on the planet.
And the concept at play here is the panopticon effect.
Oh, like the prison design.
Exactly. In architectural theory, a panopticon is a prison designed so that the inmates can never tell if the guard is watching them at any given moment.
Right.
And because they might be observed at any time, they internalize the surveillance and they police their own behavior perfectly. The author is suggesting that this room isn't an academic classroom at all. It's a panopticon.
A controlled environment.
Yes. It is a tightly monitored broadcast booth for state-approved narratives, ensuring absolute compliance with the brief. The author concludes this breakdown with a defining thesis. The most effective psyop never looks like a psyop.
It looks like a calm professor. It looks like a brave, independent academic bringing you the hidden truths the mainstream media is afraid to touch. And it's all being broadcast from a classroom that, according to the author's analysis, may not even exist in reality.
Yeah, and we can pull all of these threads together to really summarize the core thesis of Deepish Divakaran's text.
Let's do it.
The author is arguing that the nature of global conflict has fundamentally evolved. We have fully entered the era of perception warfare.
Right.
The battlefield is no longer geographic, it is cognitive. The territory being contested is your worldview. And in this specific case study, the weapon being deployed isn't kinetic. It's a trusted Yale degree, operating from a Beijing address, leveraging Western algorithms against Western minds.
It is the complete weaponization of Western academic aesthetics to dismantle the very architecture of the societies that created those aesthetics. It is a brilliant, terrifying concept to unpack.
And if we accept the framework laid out in this text, it leaves us with a deeply unsettling challenge regarding how we navigate the digital world.
Yeah, what's your takeaway here?
Think about the implications for a second. If a state-sponsored infrastructure can perfectly synthesize the aesthetics of a grassroots, independent, truth-telling intellectual, how do we ever trust the origins of our media again?
Well,
When the line between authentic organic virality and a manufactured, highly funded psychological operation is completely erased by the algorithm, how do you verify the reality of the voices you allow into your mind? Are you listening to a brilliant, independent thinker? Or are you just admiring the paint job on a papier-mâché wall?
that structural wobble is something you will likely be looking for every time you open an app from now on. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the sources and for taking the time to explore the complex, hidden architecture of perception warfare with us. Keep questioning the set you are standing on, and we will catch you next time.